Welcome back, everyone. This is Akinar here with more Elden Ring. It feels good to be saying those words once again. It's been a little while since our last rendezvous. It's very good to have you all here once again for what's going to be a very special episode of Elden Ring. As we look back, we take a moment to recollect and reflect on everything that has happened so far. I am getting, so I'm starting to get very excited about taking on the DLC, which we will be doing soon in the not too distant future. I have been enjoying my break away from the game to just enjoy some other games and other things, but I am starting to feel that itch. I have been starting to feel the pull of Elden Ring and the DLC, the Shadow Realm. I know that FromSoft always seems to save the best for last in their DLCs, but they know how to turn up the difficulty meter, and I'm starting to look forward to the fun of a new DLC, but also wary of my butt getting kicked. So excited, but also very intimidated at the same time. We're going to be doing that very soon, as I said, and also stay tuned for the end of this episode because we are going to get a little appetizer for the DLC. I am going to be reacting to the story trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree. I have not looked at anything DLC related yet. This is going to be my first glimpse at really anything. I might have seen a screenshot of like the poster or whatever, the game art, the cover art for the game, and that's about it. There was a guy on a throne, I think, but I don't even know who that guy was. So yeah, that is going to be at the end of the episode, and the rest of the episode, we're going to spend a little bit of time here going back over, pouring over various notes and thoughts and theories and all of the, everything that we have absorbed so far in this massive, incredible journey that we have been on. I'm not going to be reacting to any content creators' lore content just yet. Vati or anybody else. There's been a couple other names that people have recommended, some good lore content creators out there, but I don't want to cover that ground just yet. I'm not sure exactly when I would do that. It would be at least after, I would be waiting until after the DLC, but maybe even a little bit longer than that. We'll see exactly at what point I'm ready to jump into other people's content. For now, I thought it would be a good thing for us to maybe go over the story trailer and the opening cinematic again, and maybe some other things along the way. I'm curious, actually, maybe to listen to my original thoughts and predictions that I had. I kind of have an idea of what some of the speculation was that I had at the time when we first viewed those the story trailer, and kind of were speculating very early on in the game about what might be going on. It might be fun to go over some of that. It also might be fun to maybe show you guys some of my as we have our our character has donned the gear of the all-knowing to begin pondering notes. I think it would be fun to show you all my notes that I have been keeping as the game has been progressing. Let me see if I can get the right thing on screen here. This is let me scroll up to the very top. This is the my notes. This is the main hub of my notes. I have the link to our death count spreadsheet. I guess I'll show you that as well. We've got the death counter spreadsheet where I have actually not just been keeping track of the number of deaths, but I have been categorizing those deaths to the best of my ability. We have 46 gravity/silly science deaths. And then I have various other categories here. Like, I thought there was going to be a lot more types of deaths under the traps/environment category, but it really turned out to be just a bunch of dying to stone chariots in heroes' graves. Mainly Fringe Folk Heroes' grave, because fuck that place. Enemies, 107 deaths to random enemies, 23 NPC invader deaths, 133 mini-bosses, and then 304 boss deaths. The categorization of boss versus mini-boss, I've generally been trying to do great enemy for bosses and enemy felled for mini-bosses, but those lines do tend to blur when you're talking about so many enemies. Like, you know, Tree Sentinel feels like a boss at the very start of the game, and then by the end of the game, it's just another enemy, like so many other boss bar enemies that just turn into regular enemies. But anyway, that is just some minor accounting notes. It is interesting to see some of the boss counts here. Morgot, the previous record holder for most deaths before he was upended by Malenia. A lot of deaths I had forgotten about, to the Godskin Apostle, the first Godskin Apostle in the Caelid Divine Tower. That was a bit of a wall for me for a while, so it's fun to look back at some of these things. And that is the part of the documentation that I've been making here along our journey. We also have, I was also keeping track of some boss attempts on this page. And I wanted to make a big note of the fact that I found a bird farming spot at the 4 Belfries. I was so excited when I realized that, wait a second, there are birds that are right near a site of grace that I can just farm for gold pickled foul feet and get that sweet runes value. What an exciting moment. I have an open questions section here, which there are still some open questions. There are still things like Chlora's Rise and, of course, Converted Fringe Tower. Erudition, light the way. Will we figure this out? Will I have to resort to going online and relying on player messages to hint me into the right direction? I want to spend some time mulling over these a little bit more before I do that, but they are still on our list of to-dos. There are some others here that I think we might have shed some more light on. Why was the Elden Ring shattered? What exactly is the purpose of the Elden Lord? What is inside the Erd Tree? That one I think we kind of figured out, or we have a much better idea at this point of what is inside. So so definitely that this is just giving you a little bit of an idea here of my note-taking process. Another bit of notes that I've been keeping are various bits of character dialogue. So I have a whole bunch of links here. Basically, anything that an NPC said to me, I pretty much wrote it down. So I could then go into my, as we're in the Google Docs here, I could do a search for relevant terms, like Marika. When I... oh, right, this is the other thing that I wanted to show you here. In addition to taking notes on character dialogue, I also was taking notes on various items that stood out to me. So whenever we would have an item that would mention something like, you know, Radahn, or we were thinking about Marika, I can go in and any item that I have made note of, I can say, okay, which items mention Marika, which items mention Leyendell, which items mention Margot or Mohg, and I would just basically take a screenshot of one of those, so I wasn't typing out every little last bit, but I could still have some key terms that I could, you know, cross-reference and search for. And this is part of how in the last episode in particular, I was searching for Godfrey. I was looking through the key items for Godfrey, and that is where I was reminded of this Godfrey icon and the mention of the fact that he took the Beast Regent Sarash upon his back to suppress the ceaseless lust for battle that raged within. So if I didn't have that, there's no possible way I would be able to remember. There's this massive is the word that always comes to mind when you think of Elden Ring. Just the incredible scope and size of what this game covers. But that gives you, I think, a little bit of an idea into how I would work to my note-taking and keeping track of all of my thoughts as the game has progressed. So I think the next place for us to kind of launch off from and start to review is to go to the story trailer. Let's go ahead and look again at the story trailer. It's been, what, episode 7 was, I think, the last time that we looked at this, and I kept saying at some point I want to go back to the story trailer. I want to go back to the opening cinematic, and I want to, you know, review, rethink everything that we know, because I think those two pieces of they're you can look at everything so differently now, sitting here at the end of the base game. I will admit just quickly that while I'm not at a stage yet where I really want to absorb a ton of other people's Elden Ring content. I do have a favorite YouTuber of mine who I have watched just the very, very start of his Elden Ring blind playthrough. And it's been really interesting watching him go through just the very early stages, like something like the character creation screen, where he's reading through the descriptions of the classes, and I'm reminded, or I'm seeing these details of, mentions of the chieftain of the Badlands, or the fact that there's all these corpses around Limgrave that are, well, they're not corpses still, they're still kind of alive, but they're up on these, I was thinking of them as crosses. They kind of do look like crosses, but they're the shape of the they're the shape of the rune arcs, which is also what we see with Marika at the end of the game, right? So all of these corpses have been strewn up, hoisted up all over the landscape in similar fashion to reflect what's happened to Marika. And of course, none of that was apparent to me when I first started the game, and now watching and looking, it's like, wow, from the very start, they were laying the groundwork on so many little details here. The ruin fragments. Ruin fragments are another thing that mention stone fragment found near places where ruins have fallen from the sky. This was another detail that just was a kind of made no sense to me at the time, but now, of course, it seems obvious that this was shards of Farum Azula, was it not? It had to be. What else could it be? It seems obvious, so obvious in retrospect, and I love how they have done that with so many aspects of this game. So yeah, all that to say, let's go ahead and check out the story trailer once again and see what they might have, how things look in retrospect at this point.
It happened an age ago. But when I recall, I see it true.
It is kind of funny to think now, knowing that our character and Ronnie end up getting hitched.
On a night of wintry fog, the rune of death was stolen.
It's hard to tell exactly from this. I was curious to look back at this to see, could we tell if these are Black Knife assassins? They have to be, right? I think at the time I wasn't totally sure still if these were actually Knights Cavalry, because they kind of look, if you go back, they kind of look like over. They like the horse. They've got the horses are shrouded in a similar way to the Knights Cavalry, right? So you could kind of make that, but again, that's probably a distinction without a very significant difference. We know the Black Knife assassins were involved one way or another with this business.
Death was stolen. And the demigods began to fall. Starting with Godwyn the Golden. Queen Marika.
That part there, I think we were kind of, I want to say we were a little bit, I don't know, I'll be curious to see what my actual reaction was to this before, but this detail I think that we've learned now, we know that with Ronnie, the whole Black Knife print, I might need to look at the text again here. Right, it was actually the curse mark of death. That's the image that, or the item that talks about the fact that this curse mark was carved at the moment of death of the first demigod, which is what we see here in the story trailer, and should have taken the shape of a circle. However, 2 demigods perished at the same time, breaking the curse mark into two half wheels. Ronnie was the first of the demigods whose flesh perished, while the Prince of Death perished in soul alone. So it's still not exactly the whole Godwyn situation. I felt like we were going to get more details to it, or that he was going to be a more significant part to the overall story. I guess he still was, but he ends up basically, I guess he turns into some sort of zombie at this point, and then ends up as a giant deformed mermaid something at Godwyn's throne down in the Deeproot depths. And that's basically the end of it. Maybe there's more to the story, like maybe there's more details. I always have to leave the caveat that I have not necessarily uncovered everything in the base game, and I don't want to know just yet. But it's really interesting, this duality, almost a yin yang kind of feel, where Ronnie perishes, her flesh perishes, and she lives on in spirit. We see her flesh at the top of the Divine Tower in Liurnia with the curse mark, similar to what Godwyn has here on his back, and the two kind of reflect each other. But Godwyn perishes in soul, and his body lives on in a very strange, deformed way, which is wild.
Marika was driven to the brink.
So it talks there about Queen Marika driven to the brink. And this is the part that I still am not totally sure about. It feels like the reasoning as to why Marika shattered the Elden Ring. What is the reason that she did that? Was it precipitated by this, right? Did this event, the way that they talk about it here in the story trailer, this line about her being driven to the brink seems to be directly linked to the events of the Night of the Black Knives. And it still feels like there's a lot of mystery around that. I don't exactly know how to piece them together. Yes, and then we have Margot / Morgot, the first of so many reveals, surprise plot twist character reveals, most of which I never saw coming. This was a good one, though. This was a and here I think he is at the Elden Throne, correct?
The shattering ensued, a war that wrought only darkness.
Yeah. There it is, the Elden Throne. We had no, we were not even close to Landel at this point when we first checked out the story trailer. But now it is so much more interesting seeing. We obviously recognized Margot the Fell Omen. We were well introduced to him, but had no idea about his status as the Omen King. It's also still interesting the line last time that Godfrey delivered. Yeah, he says, "It's been a long while, Morgot." A detail that I had forgotten, because I was a little puzzled by that line, and I was trying to think, what's the connection between, other than the fact that the Omen King, was basically holding the place of the Elden Lord. I think he never really became Elden Lord himself, correct? If we look at, I guess if we go to Morgott's Great Rune, it does say that the Omen King was born of the Golden Lineage. That part I had completely forgotten about. I think we obviously read this at some point, and but I just had not. I'd have to go back and see what my thoughts were at the time, but that suggests that if he is born of the Golden Lineage, then somehow he must be related to Godfrey, would he not? It also says on his boss soul that he took it upon himself to become the Erd Tree's protector. He loved not in return, for he was never loved, but nevertheless love it he did. We know he was cursed as well, right? He had the curse of the Omen. The thrones stained by my curse, such shame I cannot bear. And none may claim the title of Elden Lord. Thy deeds shall be met with failure, just as I. So I don't know if he wanted to be Elden Lord, or and couldn't be because of his curse, or he had some other motivation for maybe he didn't want to be Elden Lord, and if either way, he was basically trying to keep anyone else from becoming Elden Lord.
The Elden Ring was broken. But by whom? And why?
Well, we have a pretty clear answer to that now, don't we? We definitely know. I'm going to be very interested to get to the opening cutscene once again and look at the imagery from that, but it's very, very clear at this point that it was Marika who shattered the Elden Ring, but we still don't exactly know why. We'll talk about that more, I think, eventually. What a cool stinking scene. Oh my goodness. Would that not be awesome to, like, if they were to put this, if this had been in the game as, I don't know, a memory or something that you play through, like some sort of epic, like actually getting to live through this this battle sequence, which is so reminiscent of so many of the scenes from Lord of the Rings. But I had initially thought that this was Stormvale Castle. It was still early enough in the game where I don't think I'd even been to Stormvale yet. Realistically, we had defeated Morgot, but we had Margit the Fell Omen, but we had not really made our way into Stormvale yet. But obviously, in retrospect now, this is very clearly the royal capital and not Stormvale. But what a scene! You've got the trolls. You've got this is the thing that I am not 100% clear on who these forces are aligned with. Who would have been storming the capital? I haven't spent a lot of time thinking through, but the shattering basically just pitted everybody against everybody else, right? There were these shards of the Elden Ring that were spread around, which now, knowing the fact that the Elden Beast is kind of the genesis of all of this, I'm interested to spend a little more time thinking through the implications there. But basically, everybody wanted a piece, and they were all at each other's throats.
What could the demigods ever hope to win by warring?
Oh shit. And then we get to the good stuff. Holy crap. Man. What two of the best, just most amazing boss encounters. These I don't know if these are the two best in the game. I think Malenia is the best one in the game for me. I just love the fight from a challenge perspective, but also I've talked so much about how Malenia as a character, like, we don't even get to see the goddess of rot in her full glory in this cutscene. But even the laying of the groundwork that they do here is really so fascinating. Radahn is also just still a very curious character in terms of, especially now that what we know about the Elden Beast being essentially a star that fell from the sky. It's interesting to think about Radahn, who was holding back the stars in his own regard. How is that linked together with all of the business around the Elden Ring? Was he trying to prevent some, like, if this is how, it almost feels like the Elden Beast is, like, I don't know, the origin story for life on the planet, except I'm not sure about that because we have the whole business around the One Great, which was talked about by Hyetta. So I'm not totally sure on the origin of life in the lands between, but definitely the origin of the Erd Tree is linked to the Elden Beast. And so was in some way Radahn trying to hold back another form of life that was descending from the stars? Because now, when you think about you know, these mini bosses that we faced. What were they called? The star falling beasts or something along those lines. But also you had Estelle, right? The other there's a few different types of enemies that come from the stars, and it's interesting to think now when you stack those up against the Elden Beast. This is not they weren't actually too different, were they? Those sorts of enemies like Estelle and the I got to look up the name of this enemy. Full-grown falling star beast. That's the name, as well as Estelle Stars of Darkness. Yeah, when you stack those up against the Elden Beast, this idea of beasts from the stars, it's really not. It's a very interesting theme that this whole undercurrent was there the whole time as we're going through the game, kind of foreshadowing. That's the word. Foreshadowing the eventual confrontation of the with the Elden Beast. Also, of course, that's nothing. We haven't even mentioned the fact this is something that my brother mentioned to me, kind of posed the idea of how there are so many characters who are linked to beasts or have a beast that has that is like partnered with them in some way. You have the Beast Regent Sirash, who is containing the rage within for Horalu / Godfrey. You have Malekith, Marika's shadow. You have Blythe, who was Ronnie's shadow. This was an ongoing theme that was there the whole time. And now just, it feels so... It's really fascinating in retrospect to look at these things. Snapping on that prosthetic.
Conqueror of the stars, General Radahn.
So cool.
And the
Both of them.
Miquella and Malenia the Seventh. These two were the mightiest to remain, and locked horns in combat.
This part here, I was always a little bit confused about, but it does look like Malenia is falling on. Is she plunging a blade into Radahn, or has she had a blade plunged into her? Is that her blade? Because doesn't it fall off? It gets sliced off here, doesn't it?
Horns in combat.
But does her blade, oh wait, oh, she grabs the blade out of the air, doesn't she? Like, oh, so her right prosthetic gets slashed off. That's what I missed before. And then her left hand grabs the blade and, oh, that is, oh, the foot, the foot prosthetic there. That's what happens. And then she takes it and plunges it in with her other hand. She's like, you knocked off my one arm. No big deal. I'm still good to go here. That is insane, dude. Oh, I'm so glad we got to watch that again because I totally missed that the first time around. What in the hell? That is so awesome. And she's basically plunging it into him, but she's having to use her own body weight. I think that's my read on it here, right? She's having to use her own body weight, and so it's cutting her at the same time. That's why I was confused, because I saw the blood dripping down, and I thought, oh, she's been stabbed, except I guess they've both been stabbed, and that's why it was a stalemate. I still love the fact that you can see Radahn's eye as he's glancing upward. Him also with a I don't know if it's supposed to be Sirash. He's got the helm with another beast on it. And we know that he really revered Godfrey, right? He was kind of obsessed with the Lord of the Battlefield. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was supposed to be Sirash or a similar figure in order to pay his respects.
But there would be no victor.
And then that's when the Scarlet Rot bloomed. She's in the, it's almost like a get out of jail free card for her, right? She should be, any normal mortal would be on the brink of death, but when you're a goddess of rot, you just do a little bit of blooming, you know? That's all it is. And yeah, this obviously makes so much more sense what is happening now in this. I just was so confused the first time around. This game is so amazing. I'm getting this is so much fun watching this again, just the story trailer, because now I'm starting to get kind of hyped for playing the game again.
And so we inhabit a fractured world, awaiting the arrival of the Elden Lord.
Why are they awaiting the arrival of the Elden Lord? Like, with so many things in a FromSoft game, you're probably never going to get a definitive answer on this. It's always going to be up to speculation. But it does ultimately feel still like the Elden Lord's purpose. I don't know exactly what the Elden Lord's purpose is, but like we kind of went a different way, right? We took the Lord of Chaos route. So this is where maybe some answers are yet to be determined for me as a player, because I have yet to experience the other endings. It could be that we get some very important information with alternate endings. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to with New Game Plus and beyond, potentially, is taking the time to experience all those, whether it's an alternate ending or an alternate quest line, doing things differently. And that's really where there are some important details usually with those alternative quest lines and events in order to put the whole pieces, all of the pieces of the puzzle together ultimately. So we might have some big question marks for the time being. My best guess is that the Elden Lord is just is playing this similar role that you have to the person who links the fire. There is a cycle that is meant to happen repeatedly in order to keep the age of the Erd Tree alive. Until the Lord of Chaos comes back, until the Lord of Chaos shows up on the scene and says, nah, let's burn it all down. How about that?
Unless, of course, thou shouldst take the crown.
So cool. Oh my gosh. It's getting me psyched to play again. What a great, it was great watching this the first time around. And it's just that much more enjoyable when you're at the end and you kind of have an idea of what's coming, and yet there are still so many questions. All right, opening cutscene time. Let's check it out again.
The fallen leaves tell a story.
So, Marika, shattering the Elden Ring. This is the... Let's see if we can walk through this. So, in my mind, the Elden Beast is essentially the Elden Ring. That's what it felt like reading the text on the Elden Stars. Maybe I'm misreading that. Maybe I'm reading too far or too broadly how that's meant to be interpreted. We also know that Marika is supposed to be the vessel for the Elden Ring. But was she always the vessel for the Elden Ring? Because, you know, when we take on Radagon of the Golden Order, Radagon is Marika. When we take on, when we have that fight, you can clearly see the fog or the energy from the Elden Beast that is kind of seeping out of Radagon as that phase of the fight is going on. And then it unleashes into you completely break open the vessel, Radagon / Marika, and the Elden Beast comes out in full form. Was that the case from the get-go? When the Elden Beast fell to the lands between from the stars, did it immediately become it feels like that happened sometime before Marika came onto the scene. It doesn't feel like, based on what we know, it seems like there may have been the idea of the Elden Beast being or somebody being a vessel for the Elden Ring / Elden Beast. It may not have been Marika from the get-go. Maybe it was. And maybe that really is the origin story. It all boils down to the fact that she, perhaps against her will, had become the vessel for this creature. And maybe that really is what boils down to the reasoning for her wanting to shatter it in some way. She wanted to break free of its connection to her, perhaps. That could be one interpretation of this. But then, in the very next instant, let that come into clear view here all the way. But then, now, knowing what we know, the fact that Radagon, I think we made a very clear observation here that it's not necessarily a very clear observation, but in retrospect, it's much more clear. But they were definitely setting this up from the very get-go, the opening of the game, the first couple snippets of images that they show you here are so central to the overall story. On the one hand, Marika shattering the Elden Ring, but then Radagon trying to put it back together. Whereas before, I think I had thought that they were somehow working in concert, that they were both trying to shatter it. But the title, Radagon of the Golden Order, this whole notion of the Golden Order has been echoed time after time after time. People like Corrin and so many other adherents to keeping this. What exactly is the Golden Order? Maybe that the Golden Order is what we just talked about, in that the Elden Ring needs to take up residence. It needs to have a host or a vessel. And that is the order of things. In order for the Age of the Erd Tree to live on, and yet Marika wanted to break free of that. And so maybe against her will, Radagon worked to reestablish or put back together the Elden Ring, reshape it, reform it. And in the process, he, I think, became enmeshed with it as well. And because it was already connected to Marika in a very strong way, Radagon had to be fused into the situation as well. And that's where you get Radagon is Marika. Hopefully that all made sense. I don't, again, this may be something that is never explained. I don't want to know yet. Don't tell me. But I feel like that's a reasonable reading on the events that we are aware of. And once again, it is just so cool how from the very start of the game, they're letting you know about this.
The great Elden Ring was shattered.
Yeah, it was shattered, right? It was shattered, but in this freeze frame, this is still Radagon, isn't it? And technically, he's kind of trying to put it back together.
In our home, across the fog, the lands between. Now.
Yeah, this is the this imagery here now is so much more interesting because they're not showing you yet. They're just showing the Marika pose, but they're not showing you the shard or the rune arc, right? The part of the Elden Ring that essentially has held Marika in place, I think, against her will. Marika the Eternal is nowhere to be found. She was in the Erd Tree all along. But so many others around the lands between have been hoisted up on those crosses in a similar shape. Did they do that willingly or were they somehow, this had become the punishment? If you're a criminal or you've trespassed some way against the Golden Order, you're going to get the same punishment that Queen Marika got.
Marika the Eternal is nowhere to be found. And in the night of the Black Knives, Godwyn the Golden was first to perish.
Slight little asterisk there as they, oh, it's interesting. It is interesting that they show Ronnie as the very next, the very next person in the scene here. Oh my gosh, that, I had completely forgotten about that. And I just had thought when we went to review this, I think at the time, I just thought, okay, well, this is, did we even know it was Ronnie yet? I think I still thought of her as Rena, and I didn't know any better. Now it's so much more clear. Holy crap, they put her right after the scene there with Godwyn. Crazy.
Marika's offspring, demigods all, claimed the shards of the Elden Ring.
This has got to be Margot, right? This has got to be an image of Margot. I think I had gotten confused because I saw the red hair. The red hair is interesting. It makes, like, there are a lot of characters with red hair, some very important characters with red hair. Is this one of them? I haven't, like, is that actually Radahn's armor that I'm seeing? It's hard to tell, but why would, it does kind of feel like Radahn's gauntlets. Was there a confrontation somehow between, is this, you know, the shattering and all the demigods warring against one another? Would this have happened? This is a detail that I had not considered at all. That perhaps, it just, like, we know Radahn to be this massive figure. He's like a giant. It doesn't make sense in my mind that he's like, you know, the same size as everybody else here, including Margot / Morgot. If that is what's going on here, that's crazy to think about, though. But I suppose it could have happened that they had been warring against one another. How did Radahn get to be the size that he is now? There's still so many questions. Aha! And this scene, this one flummoxed me for so long. I just had no clue. I came back to the opening cutscene quite a few times, just in, like, playing a fresh file here and there, just starting out and playing the very opening part of the game, which I love to do. And I would see this and I'd be like, who the heck is this? Now, of course, my goodness, Mohg, the frickin' Lord of Blood. Look at that trident, the bloody trident. You can see his eye. I had not noticed that the first time. One of his eyes has this weird, like, laser glow to it. And then, of course, as I was saying for the longest time, Miquella, or one of my siblings had joked, Miquella, Miquella, the one who is cursed with forever being a child. That makes so much more sense now, because I was like, who is this tiny little person here? It's Miquella. And I'm going to be very interested to see just how connected is Miquella to the DLC. I feel like he has to be a pretty prominent figure, doesn't he? Because it does seem that in the base game, like, obviously we have a very big boss fight against the Lord of Blood, and then Miquella is mentioned in so many places. He's very central to Malenia's story, but I feel like we don't see him as he's very much a side character. It feels like there's just not a whole lot other than the business with the Lord of Blood and the connection to Malenia. We don't get a whole lot of detail about Miquella. And I'm looking up here, I'm trying to get to my notes. I wanted to look at the one character who we have been introduced to in the DLC is Leda. And she does mention, she asks us, were we guided here by kindly Miquella? Like you, I was guided by faith along his honorable path. Touch the withered arm, and you two will be transported to the realm of shadow, where Miquella the Kind now dwells. Sure feels like Miquella is going to be a much more central figure in the DLC. I'm excited to check out the DLC story trailer here in just a bit.
The mad taint of their newfound strength triggered the shattering.
Oh my god, Rykard. This was another one that puzzled me for quite a while, but also seems so, well, I mean, gosh, Rykard. Rykard, I feel like there's still so much more about him. I feel like he has so many more, when it comes to Malekith. We know from the item that we picked up from Bernal that Ranni had essentially, she was in league with Rykard, and they were the whole, let me pull up the item description again here. Right, it was the Blasphemous Claw. We get the Blasphemous Blade from the Lord of Blasphemy, and we also had the Blasphemous Claw. On the night of the dire plot, Ranni rewarded Praetor Rykard with these traces. Should the coming trespass one day transpire, they would serve as a last resort foil, allowing Rykard to challenge Malekith the Black Blade, the Black Beast of Destined Death. So if somehow the dire plot, which I assume to be a mention, they're talking about Godwyn, right? The Knight of the Black Knives. So that's where the details of exactly what they wanted to happen break down for me a little bit. Like, by killing Godwyn, the point was to, I guess, was that to try and spur Marika into shattering the Elden Ring? Was that their whole purpose? They wanted Marika to try to shatter the Elden Ring in order to, so that they could get a fragment of it? Was that really what they wanted to do? Or do we had speculated before that Ranni's motivation was to free herself from the greater will, that she was being controlled by the Two Fingers in some way. And I had thought that maybe that's why Marika wanted to shatter the Elden Ring, so that she wouldn't be controlled either. So maybe this was all just about making sure that they could break free. This whole Golden Order situation only functions in a world where these demigods are being controlled. Except some of them maybe don't want to be so controlled. I still wonder if Rykard and Gideon were in league with each other somehow, but that, I think I'm still maybe drawing a line there that might not be it might be a pretty tenuous line of connection. Just thinking about the single enemy at the village of the Albinorix that had like snakes on his armor or tabard, and thinking that was because Gideon was also involved with the village of the Albinorix, that he was tied to Rykard. Rykard, I think, I'll be interested someday, whether it's Vati or somebody else, maybe has done some real deep digging on Rykard. I feel like he has a lot going on, but it's really difficult to put together the pieces.
A war from which no lord arose.
That sword is so freaking cool.
A war leading to abandonment by the greater will. Oh, rise now, ye tarnished, ye dead who yet live. The call of long-lost grace speaks to us all.
The call of long-lost grace. Is this a call from the Elden Beast? Was the fact that Marika and Ranni and these various figures were trying to break free from the control of the Elden Ring, the greater will? Is that like supposed to be synonymous with the consciousness that is the Elden Ring / Elden Beast? And maybe the Two Fingers as well? Like there might be an entire some sort of universal consciousness between these various entities, and it just is this amorphous thing that is known as the greater will. Is this call of long lost grace, is that an attempt similar to the two fingers controlling Ronnie and other demigods? Is it an attempt to now control bringing people back from the dead? Says, well, we can't control the demigods anymore, so let's try to find some other hapless fools, lowly tarnished of no renown, to try to do our bidding for us.
Chieftain of the Badlands.
This feels so I feel like I'm saying this as a broken record here, but it feels so obvious in retrospect that the chieftain of the Badlands was Godfrey the whole time. This they show very clearly Siraj here. They just, they hide enough of this guy's face. They just, there's enough of a mystery about it to where I was not suspecting a thing. But boy, oh boy, Horalo, he really bit it, didn't he? But of course, this was the thing, is that we know that the Tarnished are brought back from the dead, right? And we see here, this is a detail that I had not noticed the first time around, but I had noticed it on one of my fresh file playthroughs. We see kind of the sight of grace, the golden humanity that is here, I think, in each of these scenes, as each of the Tarnished are mentioned. Was Godfrey the first of the Tarnished? He was first Elden Lord, but then he was banished by Queen Marika to roam the Badlands, where I presume this happened. But then grace came to him, and he was brought back to life and made his way back to the Lands Between, and perhaps brought a whole bunch of Tarnished with him.
The ever-brilliant Goldmask.
Goldmask. Yeah, he had the item, right? He had this other quest item, which I suspect to be what is going to lead to an alternate ending. We could have maybe done this ending if we had used Miquella's needle to expunge the influence of the frenzied flame from our system. The mending rune of perfect order, that was the item here that we eventually get by I guess completing Goldmask's quest line. But it says a rune of transcendental ideology which will attempt to perfect the Golden Order. The current imperfection of the Golden Order, or instability of ideology, can be blamed upon the fickleness of the gods, no better than men. That is the fly in the ointment. The instability of ideology, and that kind of feels in line with what we've been speculating here. The Golden Order is all about keeping those demigods in line, except keeping the gods subservient, and yet it is their fickleness, where they are no better than men. That is the imperfection that allows the Golden Order to kind of fall apart.
Fear, the deathbed companion.
Also, it'll be interesting to live in a world where the Lord of Chaos is not bringing an end to everybody, including Fia. The way that her dialogue played out, it felt correct, but also wrong at the same time. To finish off Fia, we'll be doing things differently on New Game Plus. That's the fun. That's the fun in a role-playing game.
The loathsome Dung Eater.
Good old Dung Eater. We could maybe go, the Lord of Chaos. There's a little bit of unfinished business maybe with, if we really want to cap off the entire Lord of Chaos saga, maybe there's a little bit of NPC cleanup yet to be done, including some people like Dung Eater, huh?
And Sir Gideon Ofnir, the all-knowing.
It is so wild now. I totally did not see it the first time around. all of the eyes and the ears. They're everywhere. I don't know how I missed it, but this is how my brain, it takes several attempts to fully absorb all the details. But I do love the sight of grace there. Sight of grace, the grace that is being given, that's right above the familiar eyeball on the armor chest piece. Frickin' Gideon. Gideon is also his dialogue at the end of the game where he's talking about how there's no point in trying to become Elden Lord. Marika just wants to keep us in an endless cycle, right? But is it really Marika that wants to keep us in that cycle, or was it the Elden Ring, the Elden Beast all along? The greater will? Because eventually, if that cycle doesn't go on, if there's no vessel for the Elden in which the Elden Ring can be held, then it passes away? Question mark? And a new age begins? So as I was saying before, I thought it might also be fun for us to at least spend a little bit of time looking back to some of my original reactions, just to see what I got right and what I might have got not so right. We clearly have a woman with a very long braided ponytail, but let's keep going a little bit longer here, because then the very next, if I remember this correctly, this very next shot, now we're looking at somebody who also has a long braided ponytail, but now the musculature is much more that of a man. This is crazy, dude. This is kind of nuts. I as much as I would like to take credit for kind of cluing into the whole Radagon is Marika thing early on, I don't think, first of all, I don't think I was quite there, because I think if we keep listening to this, I want to say that I remember thinking that this might have been Godwyn. I feel like I was still tying together Godwyn because of the story trailer. I was tying in Godwyn much more closely with Marika compared to Radagon. In retrospect now, this is very clearly Radagon. But I also, we should really give a lot of credit, I think, to Miyazaki. When you are framed, the way that this is framed from the very opening of the game, the first thing that you're showing the player is this thing that looks very confusing the first time you see it, and you're not really quite sure what you're seeing. But in retrospect, you can see exactly how everything was being framed. And it's just done so beautifully. I was not sure when I first saw this, and then I went back to rewatch it, if this is the same person undergoing some sort of transformation. that is like, we still don't know for sure exactly what nature of transformation may have taken place, but Radagon is Marika. Oh my gosh, we were so much closer than I ever could have imagined. It is nuts, dude. This is absolutely insane. That in the process of shattering the Elden Ring, which, by the way, we're doing on a tree stump, an interesting detail to think about. Are we inside of a tree? Oh boy, are we inside of a tree or what, guys? The imagery in the opening cinematic is a little different than what we end up seeing in the boss arena where we actually fight Radagon. Is much more open. But man, oh man, there were some things that we were pretty spot on about, huh? I also realized in pulling up my episode 7 that there was another trailer that we reacted to. I had completely forgotten about the E3 announcement trailer. We're not going to go back and rewatch that again in total, but let's see what reactions we had to it at the time. Like if we watch back to the announcement trailer, oh, okay, I missed that detail the first time. The hammer hits and they're almost like tree roots. This is honestly, I had completely forgotten about this. It's coming back to me a little bit now because I think at the time, just like a moment ago, I was thinking back to my mindset back then and remembering how much I think in this scene I was thinking of Godwyn. Radagon was not on my radar yet in the way that he should have been in retrospect, or I don't know about should have been. Like we were still this was part 7. Like there was still so much to uncover. But yeah, I totally now looking at this and understanding that this is Radagon. And of course, we see how he looks as Radagon of the Golden Order, and his entire left arm has completely broken away, and there's like the Elden Beast is seeping out of him. This takes on a whole new meaning now. It's not the black knife print that we're seeing from Godwyn. This is Radagon trying to put the Elden Ring back together, but I guess in the process being shattered himself. Oh gosh, this is so crazy. All right, I think it's time, folks. It is finally time, that time of the program, for us to check out the DLC story trailer. Like I said, I have not, other than our brief little trip to the Shadow Realm after touching Miquella's withered arm, I have not absorbed anything DLC related. So this is the first real anything that I am watching that's DLC related. So let's check it out. Story trailer time. Go.
Miquella the Kind spoke of the beginning. The seduction and the betrayal.
Ugh.
An affair from which gold arose.
What the fuck? What the fuck?
And so too was Shadow born. What followed was a war unseen.
Holy crap.
One that could never be put to song.
Who that be?
Without grace or honor.
Who that be?
The tyranny of Messmer's flame.
Whoa! Whoa, dude!
And so kindly Miquella would abandon everything. His golden flesh, his blinding strength, even his fate. But we are not deterred.
Leda?
We choose to follow. Will you walk with us?
Oh, baby. Whoa. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yo, I am so freaking hyped all of a sudden. I'm ready. Wow. Wow. Okay, let's review. The first thing to say once again is just how insane, insane, but also insanely good that FromSoft is at these cinematics. It is just remarkable. Okay, so I mean, I think we clearly. I think who we are seeing here is Miquella. Huh. I wonder, guys. I wonder if Miquella is going to somehow be involved in the DLC. No shit, Sherlock. So I that's got to be what we're seeing here, right? The whole, and of course, the trail paved in blood that we have seen here. Now, it's not 100% clear though if this is like, it does feel like we've got a cocoon situation that somebody is being wrested from, perhaps. Not 100% sure, but this feels like this is Miquella, maybe. And then we've got the whole, you know, the trail of blood business. But then what is going on here? What in the world do we have at this unbelievable scene? Let me listen to the narration here one more time.
And so too was Shadow born.
Yeah, okay, so the Shadow. What the hell is Shadow? What the hell is the Shadow Realm? That's going to be the big question, perhaps, for the entirety of the DLC. But thus was Shadow born. Yeah, what exactly are we looking at here? It's like a mass of bodies, but we're also like opening up this portal into the Shadow Realm or from the Shadow Realm? Question mark? The music is also phenomenal. The throwing back, it's clearly a it's got its own feeling to it, but the little plucks at the harp are definitely rooted in the main Elden Ring theme. Love it.
What followed was a war unseen.
I think we've seen these guys before in the the wonderful spoilers that you get with the menu loading screens. They're like they almost feel like scarecrows in a regard, like they're woven together, kind of like a I don't know if scarecrow is the right word, marionette sort of scarecrow with a huge torch flame inside of them. What the hell are they?
One that could never be put to song.
Who's this? Somebody who feels like they could be pretty important. Run through with a bunch of spears, laying on the steps. Who that be?
A purge without grace or honor.
Okay. This right here, I feel like I've seen one. Did I mention? I think I mentioned it before. I have seen like the box art or something on the Steam page for the DLC, and I want to say that maybe this is the guy that was on that box art. Not sure, but I had not noticed before the fact that there are multiple snakes that are, I don't know, maybe growing directly out of this person. They mentioned, was it Miasma's flame? Is this who that is? You've got like these trails of like blood and fire that are like going through the air, snaking their way through the air. Nuts, dude.
The tyranny of Mesma's flame.
Excuse me, Mesma's flame. I stand corrected. Holy shit. Oh God. Volnir, you look a little different over here. Am I seeing, are those omen horns up there? This is probably a brand new creature, but it's always interesting to try to tie things in. If we're dealing with a shadow realm, it feels like there's going to be some relationship between entities that we see in the shadow realm versus the non-shadow realm. That is such a cool. Oh, Mesma, is this you? I have a feeling, and you have a thing for fire, or at least your brand of fire. Once again, the eye peering out from under the helm. Oh, the cinema is so good. Now this here, it feels like this is Leyndell? Or is it a shadow version of Leyndell? This is a big question mark to me still. Ironing out the details, and we'll hopefully get some answers eventually. But then, Yeah. What is this? Is this what the Erd Tree has become, or is it just the shadow version of the Erd Tree? So many fun questions to be answered. I have a feeling, if I had to guess, the thing that I've read before, we've talked about a little bit on the menu, loading screens, the Scadu Tree. I got a feeling that this is probably the Scadu Tree, but who knows for sure? I mean, you guys know for sure. I'm going to be excited to find out for sure. How epic is this music as well? Goddamn.
And so kindly Miquella would abandon everything.
I do feel like this is, I gotta go back and listen maybe to the dialogue that we had with Leda before, but it does feel like this is being narrated by the only character really that we know related to the DLC so far, which is Leda. This scene is also just beautiful. I think we actually, maybe this is where we get, this might be where we enter into the DLC. I'm really excited to go back and play now. I'm so stoked. What exactly is this symbol though, right? I've seen this symbol before, once again, on a loading screen. What it mean? It's not the Elden Ring. It's something very distinct to that. Something Miquella related?
His golden flesh, his blinding strength, even his fate. But we are not deterred.
That is, I hadn't noticed that the first time as she's dragging her hand across the ground. The golden residue that's being left. I'm so curious to know how exactly she is connected to Miquella.
We choose to follow.
And we've seen this, right? This has got to be where we enter into the Shadow Realm, because that backdrop and that tower, right? This tower right here. I don't know if you can see my pointer. Yeah, my mouse on the screen. This tower right here, which I had said reminded me of the Eye of Sauron. It didn't remind me directly because there's no Eye of Sauron there, of course. But what I meant is just the tower. You know, the tower where the Eye of Sauron would sit in between. It kind of makes me think just ever so slightly of that tower. Man, that was so much fun. I am... I'm stoked, guys. That trailer definitely did the trick. I'm ready to go. As I'm waiting for my schedule to clear up just a little bit, but I am hoping to very soon be able to resume the normal Tuesday and Friday upload schedule as we begin the Shadow of the Erd Tree. Look for that, as I've been saying, in the not too distant future. I'm so looking forward to it now, especially after watching that story trailer. It's going to be so much fun. If you guys did enjoy this this unique installment of Elden Ring, this look back to the ground that has been covered, and a very exciting look forward to everything that is to come, please do consider hitting that like button to share the video with people like you who would also enjoy it. It definitely does help out, and it is very much appreciated. It is also very much appreciated having all of you along for the ride. This Elden Ring journey has been so much fun. I was a little bit sad to see the base game come to an end, but also there's still so much to do. This DLC just looks amazing. It looks scary as hell. And the journey, there's still so much to do. It's not over by a long shot. Thank you all very much for joining me, and I hope to see you in the next one.